That was a hell of a babyface promo celebrating his AEW World Title win from Hangman Page. That's a world champion, fan favorite, relishing in victory, underlining the importance, setting the agenda, framing what it means, doing so in a way that was gracious and kind and lived up to his, reputation. The as a guy who people just like. I thought it was good. I thought it made the title win seem historically important and kind of laid out the path for him. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was really good, effective way to start the show. I really like the callbacks to the other people that helped him along the way,
Yes.
that you may have forgotten about, such as Jay White and even more recently Darby, Bryan Danielson, and so on. Orange Cassidy, who hasn't been on in a while. So I thought that was really effective of how they kind of recapped the story a little bit of all the people who kind of tried and failed, but who chipped away at Moxley to lead to Hangman finally getting that belt. And I thought it was a heck of a start to the title reign. So, Hangman's been really strong on the mic over the last, I don't know how long, and it's just continued that pattern. So it's not a surprise, but it was really good. This was the promo he needed to deliver, and he did it.
And it's kind of the promo I expected and hoped for. And that's good. I mean, I had high expectations and high hopes, and this hit the points that needed to be hit. And what AEW represents, it was a rah-rah, earnest, almost sappy, but in a way that was self-aware, and the fans ate up. Sappy has a negative connotation, but that when you can get away with being that sappy, you are over, and people like you. That it's like not since Tommy Dreamer has somebody stood there and been as emotional, open about their range of emotions and having a crowd chant a company name as they were cutting a promo. So yeah, it was good stuff. So we obviously, you and I haven't talked since All In, and I think it was likely to understate it that Hangman was going to win, but nothing's for sure till it happens.
Sure.
What do you think about Hangman as champion, ending Moxley's reign, and then having AEW choose Hangman rather than Swerve Strickland or Kenny Omega or most, prominently Will Ospreay, or waiting for Darby Allin, to be ready to wrestle and doing a program with him? How are you feeling about Hangman Part 2 as world champ?
I was one of the people that was in the camp of Ospreay, thinking that it was his time. But before they had their match at the previous pay-per-view, I started leaning towards Hangman. I was convinced that, in fact, if you look back at the story, it was his time for redemption within the storyline. And I think it peaked. And I think that they did make the right choice. There'll be chances for Ospreay to get his title, and might pay off that he does it at a different time, maybe at the London show or something like that, or sometime next year. But this was the time for Page, and it worked out really well. Like you were saying, to come out with that stuff, and even in Chicago, which is known for being a tough town.
Yeah. Well, so was Philadelphia, and Tommy Dreamer somehow got over.
Yes, right. So there's a parallel there. Yes,
ago, yeah.
Exactly. He's really in the zone. He might be the top guy on the mic right now, and he's just really clicking. They made the right decision. And he backed up what he needed to do tonight, so good for him.
There's an aura of authenticity to Hangman. It's like I know Hangman was a heel. I know he's been through a lot. He was walking around, stumbling around with, drinks in his hand. And I mean, it's not like he's been this consistent character, but the current Hangman is, I joke about Tommy Dreamer, but it's kind of like the new Superman. The new Superman isn't an anti-hero. He's just a straightforward, positive, nice guy. He's practically like Rob Lowe in Parks and Recreation, like just Mr. Positive. I want to do good. There's no I'll say it against my rules. Shades of gray with him. And with Hangman, we are it's against my rules now because people use that term and it never means the same thing to anybody, so you can't have a discussion about it anymore. But Hangman is just an unabashed, I want AEW stands for something. I'm going to represent it with pride, and I'm going to fight for what's right. I mean, he is a cowboy Superman for 2025. So I think that worked a lot. I think that worked really well. And my next question is, what about the follow-up with Moxley? Moxley lost the title. The announcers, speculated in the main event. Did it break his spirit? Taz didn't seem quite ready for the question and was like, well, I don't know. I'll say not, but I understand why you'd ask the question. It didn't seem like it was necessarily an established talking point that Taz was prepared for, and I don't know if it was clear to me tonight what is next for Mox, other than we had a 6-man tag match with his crew against Hangman and a couple friends, and they beat him up afterwards, and then Darby showed up. So, I guess does that indicate there's going to be a Mox Darby feud because Darby stared him down? I mean, is that because I get a few days after a big weekend, AEW just like, let's just put on a show heavy on wrestling, some celebratory promos, underline why All In was great and what happened, and I'm okay with that. It was just a catch your breath show. There's some of the chat are like, oh, it felt like a collision. It kind of did, but you had the world champs celebrate, both the men's and women's world champs celebrate their wins. You had Okada celebrate his win, so really 3 champions celebrating big wins, and a follow-up on the Young Bucks story. So I thought it checked enough boxes, and then it had some good athleticism, but the Hangman match was sort of like a turnkey. We can just throw them in there and fill 20 minutes. And that's roughly what they did. So to me, I guess I'm proposing an answer to my question, which is, do you think what we saw at the end, Darrin, is Darby Allin is next for Mox and he's going to just move away from the world title picture?
That was my natural thought, is that Darby was next. He's staring him down. And that would kind of make sense because they have story that they need to tell there, but there's still some mileage left in Hangman against Mox, and I think the last few months Mox has really stepped it up and shown that he's a centerpiece guy, so I don't think he should necessarily fade to the background. Sure, he was the centerpiece champion for a long time, and at least initially the whole Death Riders thing got a little bit tiresome, but I thought they gained momentum towards the end. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a rematch. You could even do it on a Dynamite or something, not necessarily the next pay-per-view, but there's still some mileage left there. But I think ultimately we're headed towards the Darby Moxley showdown, and you can get a lot out of that.
And I'm not against Moxley getting a rematch. I mean, it's like this weird point of contention. Should someone who loses the title get a rematch? And different eras, it's sort of been a thing that was inherently thought to be deserved, and others argue no, it's not. Shane McMahon at once said it is it's passé at times. So it's just like it's this weird thing that sometimes it's a thing you get. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. But the idea of what storyline is it right now? Oh, New Day. The GM is saying, oh, New Day, you don't get a rematch. You don't get an automatic rematch after you lost the belts because you didn't give an automatic rematch when you won them. So it seems like it's a negotiable thing. But obviously Mox was champion for a very long time. I could see him go, I could see Hangman going, let's close this out. If you think, XYZ happened that led to me winning, hometown crowd, so to speak, cowboy and, in cowboy country, you pick the city, you pick the time, I'll defend it. I want to be a fighting champ. And they can do one on, try to pop a rating on a Collision or a Dynamite. I'm fine with that, but I'm also fine, perfectly fine if they just pivot Moxley, say, to Darby coming up at All Out.
Yeah, he was a dominant enough champion that it would be certainly credible to say, why would he not get a rematch? But AEW does do it sometimes where the longtime champion does not get a rematch, so it wouldn't be too much out of character. You could have an inconclusive finish thing, have them, as you said, pop a rating on a Dynamite. So I would not be surprised to see that, because they didn't tie up the loose ends with Hangman and Moxley. Still looks like they might be headed towards that, and maybe segue into the Darby thing to use their rematch to do that as a vehicle for it.
Yep. And then MJF cut a promo with his newly won, clipboard in the bank with a contract in it, and said he's going to cash in. You had Athena. Well, we'll get to the women's division separately, but they both did that. The two of them who have their cash in opportunities. So just to round out the discussion on Hangman, obviously MJF is a candidate for a title shot at All Out against Hangman. If we're to assemble a post Forbidden Door, top card, Moxley, Darby, and Hangman versus MJF, and then Athena and Toni Storm seems to be what they're setting up as a top three. And I'm good. I mean, it's got a couple months to go, so it's early forecasting, but I'm fine if they steer us in that direction.
That seems to be the direction, and it's time for MJF to get back in the title picture. He's been doing the hurt business, hurt syndicate thing, and kind of doing some comedy, but now it's time to get him back in the forefront where he belongs, in something prominent that he can sink his teeth into. Plus, with the movie coming out, I'm sure they want him, the Happy Gilmore 2 coming out, they want him to be in a prominent place because he might get some kind of outside publicity. People might tune into the show looking for him and see him at the top of the card. That's where he needs to be. So he's sat on the back burner enough, and it's time to get him to the forefront, and looking forward to that. I thought he cut a strong promo tonight, so looking forward to that title shot.
Yep. All right, well, let's pause and introduce ourselves, and then we'll get on to other topics and interact with the chat and invite people to call and email also. This is a Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post show for Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter, the website, PWTorch.com, and the host of various podcasts, including Everything with Rich and Wade, a VIP exclusive show that we recorded yesterday. I just said that. The Fix with Todd Martin, which I'll be recording tomorrow with Todd, and also post pay-per-view matches and PLE, or post pay-per-view and PLE roundtables just for VIP members, which we recorded with Rich and Todd after All In on Saturday. Plus, I don't mention this often, but I do start to finish roughly 20-minute recaps of Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown just for VIP members on the Wade Keller Hotline feed. And we have a ton of other stuff that I'm part of and that others are part of in the VIP lineup. Full details on VIP membership if you want to support us and also get a lot of value for that membership. Full details on all the different options and platforms, Spotify, Patreon, Apple, directly through your iPhone, through your Apple account, or in the Apple Podcast app, or through our main website with full VIP membership with credit card, debit card, or PayPal. Check out full details on the features and sign up options at pwtorch.com/govip, which includes unlocking over 35 years of back issues of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, over 2 decades of podcasts, including pay-per-view roundtables going back to 2004, and hundreds of retro radio shows, a bunch that I hosted on KFAN radio, All Sports Radio in the early 90s. So a lot of cool benefits and an ad-free website, mobile and desktop. But again, full details at pwtorch.com/govip. But we are here to talk Dynamite with you, our live listeners. So if you are watching us live, join in the chat. You're invited to join us in the chat, comment on the show, and we will throw some of those chat comments on the screen and read them, because most people listen to us on the podcast side of things. We've been podcasting for so long. That's where the majority of our audience is. And so we always say shout out to our people on our podcast feed and invite you to join us live if you can sometime. But if not, we will read what is on the screen to you also. So go ahead and join us in the chat if you are watching us live. You can find us live after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Those are the shows I host on the PW Torch YouTube channel. Just search PW Torch. You'll find us. There's a link also directly in my TV reports at pwtorch.com every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday covering Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Also, we have the NXT post show on Tuesday nights with Kelly Wells, Nate Lindbergh, and an array of co-hosts. And we also have our live post pay-per-view and PLE shows hosted by usually Brandon LeClaire, also sometimes Greg Parks and others on our YouTube channel. And then that also gets sent out on our PW Torch Daily Cast feed. Speaking of the podcast, if you want to subscribe, search Wade Keller and search PW Torch to get our free feeds for the Red Show and the Blue Show with my face on it, the regular podcast and the post shows. And then PW Torch will get you signed up for the Daily Cast, which includes the Wrestling Night in America that followed All In on Saturday night and also followed WWE Evolution on Sunday night. So 2 Wrestling Night in Americas this weekend, both available free on the podcast side of things and on the YouTube channel. And then you can also on that feed find the NXT post shows and other shows, because it's called the Daily Cast for a reason, a different show each day of the week with different themes, including the All Elite Conversation Club focused on AEW. Darrin Lilly is my co-host. It's been a while, Darrin, it feels like, since we hosted together. Great to have you back. You help, you primarily cover TNA for us, although we don't do post shows on TNA. So we also talk AEW most often recently with you, but you do write-ups on Impact every Thursday night, and also have done a TNA podcast and are part of some other things. So welcome back to the co-host chair.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. If you want to talk with Derek and me live right now and you're watching us live, if you're a VIP member or Patreon supporter, you can find a link to be a video or turn off your camera and be an audio caller like our Blog Talk Radio days. That link is on our Patreon page, PW Torch VIP, or in my TV reports on the VIP website. So we invite you to call if you would like to be on the show. You can also email us, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. A note, if you listen to us on delay on the podcast side of things and you want to be part of the show because you can't watch us live or you choose not to, great. You can still be part of the show by emailing a question or comments or topic suggestion to wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. All right, Darrin, back to the show. Let's talk about Toni Storm's celebratory promo. We covered Hangman Page. She came out on a balcony in black and white with an old grainy film look. Only red was showing up other than the black and white images. And we got her on double entendre, suggestive language, tits pointing to the future, buffets, bending her over a table. Those are just off the top of my head. That's just scratching the surface of what we got from on brand from Toni Storm. But I thought it was a good on brand promo. And then Athena interrupted and just said, I've got a date picked out that I'm going to cash in, but she didn't reveal it. First, what'd you think of the Toni Storm celebration? And then Athena already stepping up and talking about her opportunity coming up.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that she's able to come up this material repeatedly, and it's just just hilarious, and she delivers it so well. I mean, who a couple of years ago would have ever thought that she could evolve into this? That she can it amazes me that she can memorize those lines and just deliver them so precisely and so effectively. And the crowd was just eating it up, which brings me to how they use that theater, the ballroom, is it the Aragon Ballroom, I believe, where they're starting that residency. They really use that to its effect during her promo with the different shots that they use, and it looked very old school to go right along with her character. So they did that very well from a production standpoint, and even the black and white and then the red highlights and everything. It was just perfect, and the crowd was just eating it alive. So she was very good. As far as the Athena part of it, I think that's a good challenger to have. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of teased it out for a while. Maybe do a rematch with Mercedes or something along those lines. I wonder what's going to happen to her. We may get to that as well. There were a few people that weren't mentioned much over the show, including Mercedes. She might be hurt for all we know. But Athena, it's time to bring her. Yeah. She a couple of months ago, she kind of got off of the ROH show and got to the main AEW show, and so it's time to get her off of ROH and make her a regular cast member on Dynamite, Collision, so forth. So I'm glad to see it, and get Billie Starkz in the mix too, because she's really good, and they're a great act together. So stop wasting them on ROH and get them to the main roster. It's like bringing in a new talent.
Oh, totally, yeah. Scott TPA says, I was very pleased to see Billie Starkz get talking time and effort to dress like she's on national TV. She's going to be taking on Toni Storm next week. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we will see a lot more of Athena in the lead up, to her cashing in, so to speak, her contract. BJF says, fresh off attending an Oasis concert tonight. BJF, good for you. He says, I think there is a master plan with Athena. I see what you did there. As a big Oasis fan in the 90s who've seen them a few times in concert and listened to them on quite a few road trips. Let's see, there's another Zach Barber, PWTorch contributor, says, give me all the Athena versus Toni. King of Strong Style says, if this is the way they were going to go, why wasn't Athena on TV more? Do you see any framing of things now, Darrin, where you're like, oh, this actually worked out well? She's the forever, as she calls herself, the forever ROH champion. And she held the title for a long time, and she can talk about and present herself as a big star on a smaller island, and then show up with a title shot, but instantly be fresh and in a main event. Is this all's well that ends well, or does this make you think, where's she been all along? She'd been great to have the last couple of years.
I'm more along the lines of where she been all along. I'm not sure if that is the comment said master plan. And by the way, that was lost on me. I know little about Oasis. Just a reunion.
You can do some in the next couple of weeks. Listen to the master plan song. It was a B-side that should have been an A side. It was great. A lot of good songs. Wonderwall. Everyone knows Wonderwall.
Okay, I know that song. Yeah. Yes. But, I'm not sure this is part of their big plan. Maybe it's something they just kind of stumbled on. I just never understood why they would have her exclusively on ROH. It just seemed like such a waste, but at least now it has add some credibility that she had the title that long. So not sure that was their plan, but it certainly has worked, and people have been clamoring for it, and it does give her credibility when she's going to challenge for the big title here. I always thought that someone could use that rub when she does lose that ROH belt, but I'm not sure they really built anyone up for that, so I'm not sure who that would be.
How could anyone know? Because no one watches. It's just a mystery. If a tree falls in a forest, is there a contender? If no one's around to see the contender. Anyway, people watch. Let's see. In Houston Rhodes covers ROH on PWTorch.com with his hits and misses. So if you want to get kind of an overview every week of what's going on the ROH Weekly Show, he does a nice job through the hits and misses format, summarizing key things that happen. Goodfella422 in the chat says Athena should have been on Dynamite long ago. That was a fumble, in my opinion. Scott TPA says, do you have Athena go over Toni whenever their match is? Do you just have Athena be a double belt holder? Or I would like to see her retire as ROH champ if she wins the AEW title. Like, Toni could say you can't be a world champ in both companies at once or something. I don't know. You don't have to worry about her losing it, before or after, or making it seem like they're now unified or merged. But that's not my problem. Do you think that she should beat Toni Storm and cement her? That would cement her she'd make a big splash and would cement her as someone who Tony Khan is serious about pushing if she were the one to beat Toni Storm. Or is that too fast and Toni should reign for a few years or at least, somewhere in between?
That would make a statement if you were really going to go with Athena and make her one of the centerpieces of your division. There's no better way to do it than that. But Toni Storm is on such a roll. I'd like to see her keep that belt for a while and build up some more challengers. And maybe I think it might be a little bit too soon for Athena to take it since she's just kind of come up to the main roster, you might say. So maybe down the line, sure, after you build that up a little bit more, you can get some more mileage out of that. But I would hold off on that and let Toni Storm, because I think she's almost you could almost make the case she's their biggest star right now. And
I think you can make that argument. But if it is, it's edging out others. I think they have just a good ensemble of top stars right now.
Sure.
And Hangman Page certainly is right there. So where Strickland and Ospreay round out the top three baby faces right now. Ospreay's in a part-time. Every time he has a match, he's probably going to get hurt and need some time. And can they rely on him to be part of a program? Darby is in the mix, but I think he's more, Undertaker-esque. I don't even know. There's not a great comparison, I think, people, but a special attraction, not a guy you put at the very tip top. Fan Blast wants to know, does Athena always cut promos like that? Because yikes. Mark Pescetti says Athena's promo didn't make me cringe. Most of the AEW women's roster make me cringe. More than that, she's believable. Why Toni has her in ROH, who knows? What do you think of Athena's delivery and content? Because for people who've heard a lot about her and been getting rave reviews, and then they see her cut that style promo, they might go, well, I don't know.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste. And to go back to the comment, that's just how she kind of cuts promos. So it might be a little bit jarring if you've never seen her before. It grows on you, and I could see why someone could make that comment. But the more you see of her, you kind of get it, I suppose. It's her own style, and probably just takes a little bit of getting used to.
Praise for Toni Storm from Darrell, who says Toni looked more like the biggest star in AEW tonight and the lead dog on the whole babyface side. She looked like everyone was hanging on every word she said. I mean, backing up your statement, Darrin, that she's the top star in the company.
I agree with that comment. But the crowd was just so into it, and then the visual of her standing up there and people chanting, it was quite a visual. So it was a good night for her.
Yep. Ramen Noodle says, when Athena got relegated to ROH, nobody was clamoring for her return at first. People now want her because of what she accomplished in ROH, despite, quote, nobody watching. So his argument is that having her putting in good matches, good performances off the main radar built up anticipation and a groundswell of support for her. I'm not saying that was Tony Khan's strategy, not saying it didn't eventually become that. I don't think it was at first, because I think, well, whatever. I don't want to speak for Tony, but I mean, I think the praise for Athena and the clamoring for her to be on the main roster or the AEW roster probably surprised him. It was probably more intense than he anticipated. But I mean, it might have worked out for the better, because TK has a way of sometimes pushing women and then they kind of lose their way and someone else takes their TV time. And in this case, she got, there's a lot of anticipation to see her be a regular.
Yeah, ultimately it was to her benefit, because she's taken that time on RH and maximized her time on the show that nobody watches. But I mean, people know what's going on. And she had a really good storyline with the Minions and Billy and the Thunder Rosa storyline. So she had a couple of storylines and delivered, kind of off the radar, but now it's her time. So it worked out to her benefit.
Mark Biscotti says in the chat, Storm in AEW, Ripley in WWE, both promotions have women who have legit claims to being each company's top act. I think Tony's getting a push that fits that better than WWE is giving to Rhea Ripley at this point. I think with Rhea, she hasn't been at the tippy top, and there's two brands with two champions, and she's competing with, Charlotte, Io Sky is champion. Obviously, Becky Lynch and Bayley and Lyra in the IC title level. But yeah, I mean, I will say this. I think Rhea could be within weeks if they just decided, that they're going to build her up.
If they wanted to, but yeah, she still has to recover from that horrible WrestleMania booking where they kind of diluted her character and she came off kind of like a jerk. And she's coming back, but I mean, it's still kind of a hole to climb out of.
Yeah, and now we got another two baby faces and a heel and a triple threat. So yeah, but no, I agree with Mark. I mean, it's. I don't know how often that's happened where you can just point to two women and two competing companies and just go to, you can make a case they're the top stars. Or I'll say this. I think for a lot of fans, they are the top two reasons they tune in, and they would totally believe them in a main event spot on any show. For sure. So Derek Mitchell wants to know, I think Athena's character development has gone unnoticed because she was in ROH for so long. Yeah. Do you have to reintroduce her to folks who don't watch ROH? How would you go about that? It's a everlasting question in NXT. How much do you assume knowledge when somebody shows up? Do you kind of meet halfway and just have the announcers do heavy lifting or a quick vignette or promo? Or do you kind of, like going back to Bayley, do you hit reset and start over and go and tell the story again? I mean, NXT is too high profile now to do that. But back when Bayley showed up, you could have made the case that the audience was small enough and it was, they weren't doing all these, Peacock specials and intermix shows like Evolution. So, yeah, what do you think of that?
That was an excellent comment, because they really do need to give some highlights, show a little bit of a video package. They're not so reluctant to show the video packages anymore. Like, for instance, they highlighted All In and made that seem like a big mega event. They even showed the pre-show matches. I don't think that's done very often. They highlighted the whole thing. And so if you do something like that, because I think a lot of people missed a lot of the Athena story and don't know about the feuds and the whole backstory with, like, why is Billy Starks with her? I'm sure people don't understand that. Yep. You throw in a 1 to 2 minute package to kind of fill in the backstory, and I think that'll make it much more effective, because she has a lot of good material that most people have not seen, don't know about. Like, why is this person all of a sudden winning the contract and challenging for the big title against one of the big stars? You need to fill that in, because you can't assume most people know about that stuff, and it's some really good stuff there that will make people say, like, oh, okay, this is who that is. Okay. Yeah, and get over that finishing hole, which looks spectacular when she hits it right.
The old face. You can just say, you know what, people won't know the dynamic, but we're going to deliberately in the next 2 to 4 weeks just show people. Instead of telling, we'll show you. We'll do sort of an abbreviated, compressed establishing of the dynamic, and then let the announcers talk about it during matches, and they can cover a lot of this during Billy Starks' match next week. And just talk about the background too. Yeah.
And that does help. But I mean, showing people, that's the ultimate. But yeah, having the announcers talk about it as well. And as you say, I'm sure they will do that next week. That will help as well.
Yeah. BJF says, Storm is my favorite wrestler in all of wrestling. She has it all down to a T. Wrestling promos and character. I was hoping, BJ, if you'd sneak in another Oasis reference coded in your I was hoping you were going to get a streak going, but yeah, Toni Storm's good.
It's a lot of pressure now for him.
Yeah, well, he said he's drunk, so he might rise to the occasion. You can be creative. All right. Ramen Noodle says, I don't think it was his strategy either. When Athena went to ROH, respectfully, she was mid. Stiffing top stars, rocking metal wings. She worked hard to grow as a complete act down in ROH. So an argument there that actually, to a point, it helped that she was in ROH. And then at that point, it just became, when is the playing field clear enough to give her the push she deserves? Maybe if we're to project onto Tony Khan, pent up respect for her that was pent up, but he wanted to really push her the right way. And that meant getting past Tony and Mercedes, which he had thought of for this show. Do you really want to do a quick one-off with Athena over and over? So I don't know. I mean, it's sort of an all's well that ends well to a degree, but it remains to be seen too. But people are going to be happy. And obviously, Scott TPA points out somewhere in Pittsburgh tonight, Rich fan was overcome with joy seeing Athena on Dynamite. All right. Let's cover the Young Bucks for a minute here and shift to them. Okay. I was hoping this would happen, that when they lost the EVP titles, they'd do some follow-up on it. I hesitate to use the word comedy, because comedy sometimes flops in pro wrestling, or it can be zany. You got the DX, the Triple H, Shawn Michaels, bad dad joke, zany DX era. We don't want that. But you do want them you want fans to enjoy seeing them pay a price, and for their cockiness in recent weeks with the limo and, the push. I mean, they abuse their power in different ways enough that I think people are like, okay, they did flex their power in nefarious and annoying ways for a while. Now that's all gone. So they show them getting an Uber and just a regular old sedan, or kind of a new sedan. It was a nice sedan, but it wasn't a limo with decals on it of the Bucks. It wasn't awful, right? No. But they were embarrassed and disgusted to be seen getting out of them, and they had to carry their own bags. I thought they played it up well. It was camp, but camp just over the line, not camp where you can't take it seriously. Where it's just in your face. They're not taking it seriously. And then they had to climb downstairs to a basement and look for their locker room. And there happened to be a guy. I would have done without the contrivance of a guy just happening to cross out EVPs on the sign as they arrived. I would have like a little thing in the background would have been like him running past them, and they kind of like, what's that guy doing? And then he's there at the door, and you see he actually saw the Bucks arrive, so he decided to run to do that. Then you eliminate the coincidence part, and you get the sense that, oh crap, I forgot to do that. I need to do that. So again, when I criticize these little things, it's straighten your time moments. It all adds up. Yeah. I wish pro wrestling bookers, and I've been around I've been around like indie shows and stuff where I know how things are created. And sometimes it's like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? And it's like, when you're on national television, it's not about popping getting a pop from your friends or being, it's like, what fits the tone. When they're easily fixable, those are the ones that frustrate me the most. And this was one where, I hadn't thought of it till just now, but it seems like super easily fixable. You get rid of this coincidental contrivance of the guy being at the door, crossing out their names just in time for the camera to film it. So I'm done with that, but little detail. But then we had a parade of people coming up to the Bucks and kind of shunning them because, it's the old thing. If you don't have power, people don't want to be your friend anymore. And I like that they did that. And then Don Callis showed up, and I don't know if they're going to do something with Callis' family, or this is just an excuse to have them team tonight in that all-star 8-man tag part 19 or whatever. So anyway, I thought it was good. Now they're Matt and Nick, not Matthew and Nicholas. I'm trying to think what else stood out about tonight. So yeah, Darren, just tell me what you thought.
Ricochet was perfect. He's the perfect person to help with that, to come up, and you have to have that segment afterwards. Reminds me of like the old days when like someone would get their hair cut in world class, and then they have to hide their hair, their head, and everything. So you had to give the fans. They lost a big match, so you got to see the results of that. And I think that they did that without going too over the top, with notwithstanding the guy drawn on the door, of course. And the ring announcer getting his payback and that kind of thing for having to announce them and all that stuff. So they did just enough of it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they followed up in the upcoming weeks with little things here and there. And you have to give fans that payoff.
Yeah.
And they did it. And I'm intrigued to see where they go next. I don't see them joining the Don Callis family, the cast of thousands over there, but maybe that was just a one-off perhaps. But I'm interested to see where their journey goes now. Are they going to eventually repent for their ways and turn into baby faces? I'm not sure, but it'll be interesting to see where it does go. And certainly there will be some kind of journey.
Yeah, I do not know where they're headed. They can. I don't think you should just do tons of turns. So I think wrestling bookers and wrestlers should look for ways to avoid turns at almost all costs. Like, to me, a turn should be a last resort, not something you do to try to inject some freshness into your act, because there's just too many of them, and oftentimes they don't land because it feels like a booking contrivance done to create fresh opponents, and instead figure out a way to fix the role that you're in. And I think they can reinvent themselves as heels and not do that. But Zach Barber says the troll job on the Bucks was great. BJF has taken us up on our challenge. He said, some might say that. Some might say it's an Oasis song. But even better, BJF says, Young Bucks were standing on the shoulder of giants, but now acquiesce to be the better men. BJF, you get some points here. You're doing a good job at reminding me of some good songs, good Oasis songs. And Darren's like, what?
Are those songs any good? Yes. Should I go out of my way to just find
Well,
those?
I don't know. Music is personal, but Oasis was timelessly. They put out great timeless. Noel Gallagher's a great songwriter. I love his solo acoustic stuff out there. And they're a rock and roll band you want to get drunk at a concert to, which I've done. So yeah,
I have not, but okay.
Yeah, well, it's BJF did, and it's bringing back some memories. So let's see. I was looking for. I got distracted. Okay, Derek Mitchell. The Young Bucks lose their EVP status after 1 week, and they take an Uber, and Justin Roberts announces them, but needs Swerve and Ospreay to do something to pay off the angle. No, the angle was paid off. Without that, they lost their EVP status. The Swerve and Ospreay were going to lose their chance to be world title challengers, but they didn't. I don't think. Can Swerve and Ospreay rub it in? Yeah, maybe. And in the next couple of weeks, maybe they will. But you don't want to get too slapsticky. Also, you got to be careful what you do with Swerve. Swerve's got other business. They're not going to do follow-up matches. So maybe it's not worth. It's not worth actually doing that. Go ahead.
Looked like he moved on already. In fact, so
Yep. Yeah. And I'm fine with it. The match that they had was an angle to have a good match on All In, and check, it's done. They did it. So yeah, I don't know that they really need to go back there. But I do think, and I've been clamoring this for years, Darren, that the Bucks, I wanted them to seem like they were excited to show up to work and put that into their characters and cut promos. It's not unanimous that what they're doing is great. I like it. I liked what they did in the build-up to this match. Mm-hmm. And I liked what they did as a follow-up. And I think that they have been believable. Again, campy, but not overly campy and zany. Just enough that kind of, there's a couple times I might have dialed back on like Matt's body language or facial expressions, but for the most part, I think they're now characters. They're when they show up, I think people are like, oh, I want to see what the Bucks are going to say or do, and you kind of know who they are now. And for the longest time, they were just super kick party EVPs. They show up for a good match, and then people go, well, that's enough, isn't it? And I'm like, well, it's not nothing. It's great. They're a great tag team. They had to pay-per-views, but I would like to see them do what every top act, whoever is successful at drawing or contributing to a national cable weekly show, and become national TV weekly characters. And AEW happened to be an assembly of a lot of people who had never been in that role. And so there were some growing pains, it wasn't Kenny's thing. Swerve had been, and maybe that paid off. But Darby, Sammy, MJF, like they had to come up with material and pace themselves for weekly national TV. I guess MJF did on MLW to a degree. So, but nevertheless, the Bucks finally seem like they're engaged in doing that. And I like that. And it doesn't have to be your favorite act in the world, but to understand that they have stepped up the effort at least. And Kyle Fassel says the Bucks have never been able to appeal to weekly TV. But I'm confident their current characters could finally do that. And then Derek Mitchell adds, since the Bucks have been back from their last New Japan stint, they seem to have been invested, which is all we ask for. And BJF just in general says, little by little, AEW are coming back. He's going to do this all night now. Yeah. So anything else on the Bucks?
Yeah, I think that, they do seem focused. And if they were to be in a storyline where they wanted to prove that they're the best team, I think you could get a lot out of that storyline. Maybe they build up to a big challenge against the Hurt Syndicate. That could be an intriguing matchup. But, I mean, they could face FTR again and several teams that they could help build up. So I think there's a lot going on there. If they maybe got on a journey where they wanted to prove that they're the best, I think that could keep them focused and give us some really good matches.
Yep, I agree. In the chat, there was some talk about this show in general, and I want to take a moment to cover that. Derek Mitchell said, one of my main concerns of AEW is they can deliver good to great matches on pay-per-view, but they have a tendency to under-deliver on their post-pay-per-view Dynamites. I thought I was watching Collision tonight. But GWF ESPN 1992 says, great show. AEW is clicking on all cylinders. It feels like the early days again. Derek Hubbard says, I did not watch the pay-per-view, but I hope tonight would feel fresh and new. It did not feel that way to me. The multi-man matches were all skippable. Bart Ty says the show was decent, but the main event sloppy, and Cope's explanation and promo was poor. We'll get to those specifics. But broadly speaking, did this show feel like I said, kind of like a catch your breath show? Derek Mitchell says, I don't mind to have a catch your breath show. Mox is in a trios match and not mad enough to ask for a rematch. The Young Bucks lose their AVP status, and next week are in an Uber, where are Swerve and Will in the follow-up. So this was a catch your breath match, or catch your breath show with some follow-up. I found this totally fine. I actually don't want them to hot shot. It was 8 hours technically, but 2 hour pre-show, 6 hours of the main show. I'm totally fine with a catch your breath show with some good wrestling. Your thoughts, Darren?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good. I enjoyed it. I was there, but I think you have to come down from that. And I thought this was an effective way to do that. You start setting the table. You let people bask in their victories, and start slowly setting the table for whatever's coming up next. I think the next big show is like a couple months away, so you don't want to, it's just a hot shot, a bunch of stuff. I thought it was good. You saw the big stars out there. Didn't give away too much. I thought it started laying the groundwork for some probably good things to come. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, yep. I'm with you. Chris Johnson says, I love the idea of a catch your breath show. That was fine. But John Moxley didn't need to be on the show. They could have let that rest a while. What do you think about some people making the case? You know what? Mox should just have gone away for a while after losing the title and not showing up for a 6-man tag, just to, because he doesn't have to pivot right away to Darby if that's the next match, and take 2-3 weeks off.
I will say that I was a little surprised that he was on the show and not selling the effects of that pretty brutal match that they had, and even Hangman, I'm surprised.
Hangman was limping, but he still had a lot going for him.
Yeah, I thought he could have come out for the promo and maybe left it at that. But they seem bound and determined to have Mox. He's a guy that he's been carrying a lot of the show, a lot of the material. So if he had a month off to let people miss him a little bit, probably not the worst idea. And I'm probably sure he could use the rest because he wrestles a very physical style. So, but they opted not to go that way. And if you were going to have him on, this was probably the best way, just to have him in a 6-man and have his star power out there and lay the groundwork for the Darby thing.
Yep, I agree. There is, Ramen Noodle, I'll throw in. Post pay-per-view Dynamites always seem to feel a little muted. I'm sure it's tough to book when you spend Monday and Tuesday trying to figure out who's healthy enough to go. I prefer more frantic pace. Now, there is some comments in the chat about the venue. It was a crowd of around 1,500 people. They went from over 25, close to 30, somewhere in there, to a really small venue, but they did not hide that. First I'll read King of Strong Styles post here. I know people like the look of this building, but going from 25K to less than 1,600 on the very next show is bad optics. I know that will upset some people, but that's insane. I'm not vouching for this as the ideal scenario, but I don't think it's a bad thing. And they owned it from the beginning. They cut right to the building, and they showed the whole perimeter of that venue, and it's this historic venue, and it looks cool. I just don't think. I think AEW made the right call by moving away from running the giant NBA, NHL buildings and having it dark and cavernous and just, you're just sitting there going, oh, they have to hide all the camera angles where there's empty seats and everything is tarped off. So they go to this building, which is celebrating its 100th year next year since it was built. Like it's basically a 99-year-old building. And the smudges on the door and the downstairs in the locker room area showed, there's been a lot of opening and closing of that door over the 100 years. I assume it's an original. But I thought it had a super cool look. And I just don't think, AEW is not, Darren, going to be able to sell themselves as WWE's equal in every way. So being different and embracing that difference is good. But I think you can, it's actually ironically compared to the comment we put on the screen, AEW can get away with it because they just were in a baseball stadium with close to 30,000 people. Yeah. So if you go to a crowd of 1,500, big deal. It's a TV show. You played at different venues, and it was this intimate atmosphere. The crowd was into it. I thought they utilized the balcony set well, with Toni Storm especially standing there, and then Darby at the end. So I think they embraced it, and it worked for me. If somebody tunes in and their expectation is if you're a big star, you're going to be in an NBA or NHL building, the way WWE does it with 7,000 to 11,000 people roughly as their key range, then yeah, this seems minor league. But when the crowd's super into it and you're showing clips of a stadium show, I think they're fine. I mean, don't do this don't do it every week year round. I think you want to have bigger venues on average.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with the variety of the scenery in the background, because when you had those big arenas, they all look the same. And I mean, sure, it's exciting to have a big crowd and everything, but they all look the same. There's no difference between a Madison Square Garden show as to somewhere in the middle of Iowa or whatever. But this looked different, and it was really cool, and they made the most of it. And they've done that before when they go to the smaller arenas. And because that crowd was so enthusiastic, it made it seem like a really hot product. It made the people, the wrestlers, seem like bigger stars, particularly, as we said, in the Toni Storm case, but in several other people when they came out. And when they showed Darby, it seemed like a really big deal. So they used that to their advantage. And I guess we better get used to it, because we're going to have the next 6 or 7 shows from there. So we can see if they can keep up the variety of different shots and keep it fresh. It
is a summer residency. I would not, if they could fill, 6,000 to 8,000 seats or more in a major arena, I'd say that's the better option almost all the time. But when you get down to 4, it's hard to make those big buildings look good. The camera angle's so tight, it's cavernous. It's not a good fan experience either. I mean, you just walk in. I've done that in WWE's downtimes. I've been at Target Center and XL Energy Center, and you're just like, I like this product, but apparently nobody else does. It's just it makes the product feel cold. Paul Heyman, I quote him a lot, because he said a lot about his promoting philosophy, especially in the 90s, and I've interviewed him a lot. And he would just, he said about ECW, I'd rather turn people away and lose money and have a packed house that's high energy than to make more money, have hundreds more fans get in the building, but have a bunch of empty seats and look like we couldn't sell out and we overestimated our popularity. That is an image that you don't want to have. And when AEW is running big buildings and it's empty, there's a negative connotation. When they run a small building and it's packed and high energy, it has a built-in negative, which is, well, if you could run a big building, you would. But it doesn't look like you're just disappointed that the product's cold. It looks like you have this hot product, but it's kind of niche. And you know what? A lot of people like bands when they're running the small clubs. Yeah. And as long as AEW does good on pay-per-view and can sell a lot of tickets for pay-per-view events, it's not a big deal. Obviously, Tony would rather have the ticket revenue from big arenas. And I'm sure his goal is, let's be successful enough we can go back to doing that. But I think that the venues are cool. And when you can go to a 99-year-old building and embrace it, I'm all for it. Kyle Fassel in the chat says, Aragon Ballroom is a cool venue. I've seen concerts there. I considered going tonight, but didn't want to venture into the city. So yeah, it was a cool venue.
He's got several other opportunities. So
yeah, that's true for sure. Yep. Let's jump over to JB's email and see if you can hit on some topics we haven't or add a new twist to ones we have. JB from Detroit says, and he says, a Wade Keller proclaimed top 3 worst city in America. Just a joke from a podcast earlier this week. Hangman's thank you speech made me realize just how deep AEW is with faces. Of any of the names Hangman mentioned, which ones make the most sense to turn heel in the next few months to strengthen the top of the men's heels in opposition to Hangman? So let's first say, do we agree with the premise, Darrin, that there's too many baby faces? Or is this an opportunity for Tony Khan to elevate some people who, because any of the people that he mentioned, all the usual suspects who were there for him. He didn't mention Adam Cole because he wasn't really involved and it didn't really fit the storyline. But Cole's not in the picture now. But, it lists a lot of people who helped him. To me, I'm okay if Tony Khan goes, no, I want to start elevating other people and having fresh opponents after we get done with MJF, who I think is, other than possibly a Moxley match, maybe not the top heel who's up first. And you can run that for months. You don't have to just do a one-off. So, what do you think?
I'm trying to think from that list of who you think might turn. First of all, Jay White stood out to me, and I'm be fairly sure he's ready to come back. And it seems like his whole faction is back now, so that's always a good choice. And I could see that being a pretty good feud. But he's also a good baby face. I'm trying to think of someone who's ready to be elevated to title contention, and I'm not really sure. Probably some people from the Don Callis stable, Takashita maybe.
Kyle Fletcher.
Kyle Fletcher, yeah.
He had a good night. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's going to get that TNT belt, so they might slowly bring him along.
But he could be ready by fall or late or winter, if they do an MJF feud.
And he would be a fresh face in the main event scene. So, yeah, towards the later part of this year, that's something you would certainly have to think about. Ricochet is another name.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool we're saying it because I think he's earned it.
His character is really clicking, and even tonight, just he made the most of his time on the screen, and he's really in the zone. And of course, he can back it up in the ring. So that's another guy I could really see a world title reign, or at least a strong challenge. Him against the Hangman, I think would be for some intriguing television. Just those two personalities. So that's another one that they have, and I'm struggling to think who else out of that.
So, Okada. Okada's unified champion. If he drops that title, he's got he's managed by Fletcher or by a same manager as Fletcher, Don Callis. And, Don Callis is the top manager. So you could do that. The chat room is throwing in Brody King's name. Goodfella 1422 says Brody King versus Hangman, please. Kyle Fassel says, I love Brody. I think he should be top of the card with a good story attached to him. Has Brody been defined down too much? I think they've had opportunities to protect him or to put him in that spot, and they haven't, but he's still over. What do you think about what kind of journey would they need to go on booking-wise with him to have him seem like a heel draw opponent for Hangman?
He seems to be protected lately, so I think that they do see something in him, and I think the crowd reactions are starting to get a little bit bigger every week, and the fact that he's being featured on TV at all really shows me that he's even getting the airtime, that he's somebody that they could do that with. I don't even know if I would turn him heel, though, because people are really getting behind him as a babyface, especially like when he came out with the Ice T-shirt a while back. It's hard to turn a guy like that people kind of get emotionally invested in. They could have a good babyface match. Yeah, ideally don't want that, but he's a guy I just wouldn't turn because I think he's kind of like a Mark Briscoe where people just are genuinely into that person and may not necessarily want to boo them. So I would have a problem with that.
Is there money and shock value and dismay in Mark Briscoe turning heel on Hangman at some point?
Wow.
He's so beloved. And again, I don't, Todd Martin just, talked against the idea of, the best time, somebody emailed said, is the best time to turn someone heel when they're really over as a babyface, because people then care about them. It doesn't feel like you're trying to put, the paddles on the chest to shock them into relevance again by turning them. If you're really over as a babyface, there's a more jarring, emotional resonance, but also it can work against you because if people really like you, they might not believe the booking. Are you just booking to you're booking because you don't have enough heels, and so now you're just turning someone kind of a hack way on short-term notice, and I don't buy it. And then you get, a Becky Lynch type thing where people are like, I'm not, this is dumb. I know her too well to believe that she's who she's pretending to be. But with Mark Briscoe, does he fall in the category of, if you thought it through and told a story and you dropped some hints where you could see why his attitude was changing about something, or he got insecure or whatever. I can't book it on the fly here, but is that someone you would maybe at least float the idea in a booking meeting and talk through if you're AEW?
That's a tough sell because you would be fighting the tide that he's just a guy that audiences really want to cheer with his whole backstory and everything, and just his longevity. People are so invested in his story. And I think that if he were to try to do it and plant the seed of how he was wrong, people would just go along with him and say, oh, he must be right. So I just can't see it. Now, him going after a title, maybe not even the big title, but him in a title chase, I think there's money in that. Like him going after Okada or something like that. I think there's big money in wanting to see him be the world champion, just not as a heel. I just can't see it. Not that he's not talented enough to pull that off, but I think people, whatever he would do, I think would just be behind him. That's just my thought on it.
I'll throw a name out there, and I've advocated for this. Nick Jackson. I'm going to see him do a full-fledged world title singles run. He's so good. There's character development there. There's history there. I mean, I'd like to see Nick Jackson and Hangman main event a pay-per-view for AEW and have a whole program around it. And Matt can go do a singles feud with Mark Briscoe off to the side or something. I don't care. But, I'd take that.
That's intriguing. Yeah, I think you could get something out of that because I remember, wasn't it Nick against Phoenix one time that they had a big Dynamite match? And I was like, ooh, there's a lot there that you could probably do. And plus, there's the backstory. And they would certainly deliver in the ring. I like that.
Yeah. And I've floated that now and then. I think there's enough character development with the Bucks right now where, you could make it work. So throw that out there. Let me see if we have, and then just eventually with Okada, if we line it up, Briscoe's a long shot to turn. I just kind of threw it out there. It's we're looking for what might help Tony Khan fill out the next 12 months if Hangman holds the belt for 12 months, and you don't want to go back to Moxley. I can't do Claudio or Wheeler. No. They're just B players. It seemed like you're going back to something underlings. So Okada top heel, MJF a top heel, Fletcher a top heel, Takeshita. I think they're heading towards a breakup there where Takeshista's more likely to be a babyface. We'll see. And then, like I said, Nick Jackson. Trying to think of Chad if there's anybody obvious. Oh, so people brought up Brody King. I don't think they can. I think that's too heavy of a lift given how he's been defined down so much. Is there somebody? Jack Perry. I wouldn't say headline a pay-per-view, but you could do a program, and that could actually be a lead up to Nick Jackson. Where you do a TV main event, a theme to Dynamite with him in that spot.
Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, Bobby is a heel. Yeah, I like that too. Actually, that would be it'd be weird, but in a good way. It doesn't feel like a typical AEW AEW match. So yeah, I think there's some options in there. Good question, JB. All right, next from him. This is ironic. What's next for the Bucks after losing their EVP titles? Will they be in the title picture soon? If not, what is a story worthy of them? That's right. He goes, if not, what is a story worthy of them? Well, I'll point you to the last 2 minutes, JB. But in the meantime, or if they don't do that, Darrin, what do you think is happening with them?
I would go back to them getting on the title chase and wanting to prove that they're the greatest of all time. And you've got enough teams there where you could Jack Perry, stop it. You had enough teams there where you could do a year-long storyline where they want to fight their way back to the top, and I think them against the Hurt business would be a phenomenal match.
Yeah,
if the Hurt Syndicate would sell, but
yeah,
didn't do great for a speedball in night, but
yeah. What do you think of Powerhouse Hobbs? I was thinking about him earlier today when I saw he's in the lineup. I just feel like he's a guy who works tag matches. He's the match with Mox, gets hurt, comes back, has a rematch. But he's just sort of a guy who just no sells for everybody, which I'm kind of bored bored of. Just like stop no selling for everybody. That's not, it's 2025, and I think it's disrespectful to top guys to do that, and it just shouldn't be that big a part of his portfolio of what he does. But I also think there's something there that's untapped in terms of him being a bigger star. He is different than a lot of what AEW presents. I think sometimes he leans too hard on no selling and that cool thing he does with his lip with a snarl. I would not lean on that so hard. I don't think that's a character. I think that's a crutch. It comes across like you're posing for a photograph. It doesn't ever feel like a natural expression. So I just, frankly, just stop doing it or whatever. But there's other things that he can do. I mean, he is I don't know. I just feel he's terribly underutilized booking wise by Tony Khan. I think there should be more that they do with him. What do you think?
I would definitely agree with that. I think he had a good thing going with the ops. I'm not sure how long Samoa Joe was going to be out, but I would let that run its course a little bit. But he's a guy that you could turn heel and really he would be a good contender. I don't know if you'd have to put him with a manager or something like that. Perhaps. I mean, his promos are fine, but if you team him up with Callis or Stokely or something like that, he's a guy that you could get over as a decent challenger, maybe even at some point have that title. But yeah, he's somebody that should have gone in our discussion as somebody you could turn heel, and y'all can see him against Hangman.
It's not too late. I didn't say we're done. It's the end of discussion. Too late. No, I know. I'm giving you. We did shift to the more topics. Derek Mitchell, by the way, on this says my concern about AEW booking is they book Brody King and Hobbs as dominant big guys in the ring, but King never wins anything of consequence, and Hobbs only wins mid card titles like a Trios or TNT title. Agree. Kyle Fassel says Hobbs has a cool factor that could be leaned into. Derek Mitchell says Powerhouse Hobbs does no sell like the Road Warrior Hawk in 1985, but he's been in too many factions. Team Taz, QTV, the Callis family, and the Ops. He needs to be pushed as a world title contender. I mean, it does seem like he's a follower, hanger-on, an enforcer. I don't want to be negative in the terminology, but he comes across as somebody who's not an alpha in his world, and I think he could. I think if you gave him that opportunity, he could come across that way. It would have worked to have like Stokely Hathaway manage him, and maybe, you could have him have a manager and, really emphasize the size. But I do think it's on him to expand his act beyond. When I think of him, I think of a snarl and no selling, and I just in a power move here and there. Show us some. They did some of those Oakland videos and stuff, and then they didn't really follow up on it. So
right, and then they had the book of Hobbs thing.
Yeah, another thing that felt kind of like one-dimensional and a crutch, and I don't know. I mean, so there's been little ideas that have been thrown out there, but nothing that I think anyone who's watched all of AEW would be like, I'm a big fan of Hobbs because of something that I learned about him and a journey I've been on him. That just he's been in that kind of Brody King category of that's not the type of booking he's received.
Yeah, so it might be. I didn't realize until that comment popped up of how many different factions he's been in. It's so true. So with that pattern, if he were to break out and give him a chance, see what he can do on his own, I think there's a lot there. But yeah, maybe it is time to break him out of those groups, give him a solo run, and see what happens. Because I think he's very talented and it's capable of much more range than what he's been able to show.
Agree. All right. Also from JB, I like that Jet Speed had matching attire tonight. It looks like this tag team might be longer term than I had expected. So they didn't get just jobbed out to Shelton and Bobby. They're just part of a multi-person team that was there to basically just be a placeholder to fill time until they could get to the post-match angle with the breakup of Christian's group. So and we'll talk about Nick Wayne in a bit here. The chat has had a lot to say about him. So what do you think, Darren, of Jet Speed as a team, and have they been defined down and because they got beat up too much, or did they show enough resilience a couple weeks ago and they kept getting beaten up and standing up again? Is Speedball sort of Teflon? He's just got this positive spirit, and Kevin Knight's just so athletic and use the NBA term, he plays downhill. He just goes. I like him, and I am on the higher end of enjoying them as an act. I like the Odd Couple team. I think they could do more to show them. I gave some ideas on a recent post show, about they Speedball giving a way too enthusiastic tour of a karate dojo to Kevin. He's like, okay, nice Speedball. Yeah, that's great. Yep. That is a trophy, and and then Kevin Knight takes Speedball somewhere where you'd imagine Kevin Knight hanging out, and then Speedball's looking like, okay, this isn't my, this is cool, like all wide-eyed, like, oh wow, this is really cool, but then embarrassing himself. I mean, there's potential for, I think, some good comedy, but ultimately an endearing bonding that they have, that they play off each other, and I say go with it because I really enjoy their matches.
I mean, sure, that was a funny scenario you brought up, but it would give them some depth if they were to do some stuff like that. Give us some background. Let us find out about the guys and how they react to different things. Yeah. I think there's enough there. I like that they have the matching gear now, and it just makes it seem like they're a committed team. I thought they were going really well, but I didn't think that the Hurt Syndicate thing did them any favors. It could have been worse. I mean,
it could have been better if they let Jet Speed actually beat them. Like everything seemed to be building up. Oh, Jet Speed have been, marginalized and beat up, but they keep showing fights. And then Bobby and Shelton kind of let their guard down, and so Jet Speed win, and then they're really mad. But then it turns out Jet Speed get better every week. The announcers can tell that story, reinforce it, and that Jet Speed are better than even Jet Speed thought they were, and they win a rematch. And you can tell that story. They're talented enough, and I don't think damaged or defined down enough.
I would agree with that as well, but now it seems that one's kind of over with. I like the interaction they had with the Young Bucks, so maybe if they could do a feud there, I think that would benefit both teams and keep the Young Bucks fresh. And of course, Speedball and Knight could really benefit from working with a team of that caliber. I think there's a lot there, though, because they were just really fresh and fans were getting behind them. And they're still behind them to a degree before the Hurt Syndicate thing. But yeah, give them some more depth, and I think people start getting behind them. And I think AEW will have some on their hands with them because I was really unsure how Bailey was going to do when he came in from TNA. He would just always have his good matches, and he did the quirky little interviews, but he really fit into AEW, and I was surprised. And then they teamed with Knight, and that just clicked, and he's phenomenal. So I think you can get a lot out of those two.
Chris J says a crib spinoff with Speedball and The Basement. So there have been some mismatched tag teams before that have worked. The Hart Foundation in the mid-'80s, Bret Hart, Jim Neidhart. Bret, excellence of execution. Neidhart, I saw him many times at the hotel bar afterwards, just sitting there drinking his beers and laughing at fans, staying in character. When fans would ask for autographs, he just swig his drink and laugh, stay in character. Bret and Jim didn't seem like people who were hanging out together and had a lot in common, but they had a really good tag team. Going back over 5 years earlier, or roughly 5 years earlier, Jesse Ventura and Adrian Adonis. They were the East-West connection. This is pre-adorable Adrian. This is when he was in shape, and he was a Brooklyn tough guy. Go look it up. It's true, people. When we think of people who transform drastically, he's the go-to guy we should talk about more. And then Jesse was the Venice Beach musclehead guy who was all full of boas and flowers and stuff. And they were in East-West Connection. It was a great pairing. And Jesse didn't do wasn't very athletic, and Adrian was a really good worker. But on the microphone, Jesse was
even the Far East-West Connection.
Oh yeah, good call. Mr. Saito, yes, showed up with Jesse. That was another fun pairing. So there are high energy, says Kyle Fassel. I'm trying to see if anyone else has ideas of kind of mix and match, mismatch, contrasting personality. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot. And Enzo and Cass, more contemporary.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't established individually as much. So, but I think super tall guy who's just tough, and then the loudmouth, obnoxious, oblivious Enzo. You haven't heard the last of me.
TNA.
Yeah,
he's my problem now.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Let's see. Back to JB's email. Now that it's Forbidden Door season, I think we can expect more international talent making appearances, even if it feels random at times. Yes. The new foundation. By the way, I'll go back to that. Kyle Fassel, very much so. Yep. And a little derivative, but it works sort of like Far East West was derivative, or I don't know, it's a lesser sequel. Zach Barber says a Rock and Sock connection. For sure. Yep. Another good one. Oh, and we have one now too. Alexa Bliss and Charlotte.
True.
Owen Hart and Yokozuna. Look at this. We got people chat coming through for us. Keep them coming. All right. Yeah, Forbidden Door season. Yeah, obviously we're going to get some international wrestlers in the next month. We'll see how that goes. All right, number 5. We haven't talked a lot about this. Will Copeland and Christian against FTR carry all the way to All Out in Copeland Christian's hometown of Toronto? We haven't even heard from Christian yet, so plenty of that story needs to be told. They also have to settle the patriarchy fracture. Could we get a triple threat of Copeland and Christian, Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian, and FTR at Forbidden Door? And then we got a final blow-off of Copeland and Christian versus FTR at All Out. More than likely a stipulation match. So this is by the way, X-Pac and Kane, RVD and Kane. This is Derek Mitchell. RVD and Kane, Daniel Bryan and Kane, Booker T and Kane, Goldust and Kane. No, I made that up. Booker T and Goldust. Stone Cold and HBK. Yeah, that actually kind of works. Both from Texas, but very different. And then Stone Cold and Triple H. That's just 2 main eventers who were teaming. They didn't really. You almost need a team name for this to work. But yeah, Derek, thank you.
Power Trip or whatever.
Yeah. Kyle Fast with a joke answer. Braun Strowman and Nicholas.
Oh God.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about what Copeland did tonight and the and Nick Wayne also. Nick Wayne cut a promo. It was better.
Yeah.
It was not. I don't want to say it wasn't good, because it almost was, but it wasn't like remarkable. It almost felt like maybe he was cognizant of his facial expressions being over the top. We had talked about there's no shame in this. He's trained to be a wrestler and he's 20. He doesn't have to be a great actor right away, but you could go to acting school. You could get acting help. If you're going to be on TV every week trying to portray a character, go take classes and learn how to act. Learn how to dial down some of the bad acting, over the top facial expressions that just feel like you're trying too hard and it doesn't work. And I think a lot of wrestlers would benefit from that. Same with vocal coaches for people who have great teen voices and bad inflection. I mean, just round out. You don't just go to the gym, go to class. It's part of being a performer. So I don't want it to come across like, it's some personal shot. It's just like, if that's not your strength, go do it. Practice free throws. Even if you're a defensive player of the year like Rudy Gobert, you practice free throws a lot because that's not your strength. No shame. So what'd you think of Nick Wayne's promo? He was reserved and intense and deliberate, and I thought stayed in a range that felt believable to me as he explained what he did.
Yeah, I think he's making progress. I mean, he's not going to get it all at one time. So this was a good step in the right direction. Yeah, I didn't think it was bad by any means, but so he's getting there. So I'll cut him from grace. I thought he was good. Sabian was okay. His mom cut a decent 10-second promo. So and I was kind of concerned because she hasn't talked much, but she handled it pretty well. So good for her.
Yes. Yep. Zach Barber says Shayna Wayne has come into her own. Is responding to Scott, who said something along those lines. So yeah, I know there were some other comments too about that promo. So talk about. I'll grab them while I throw to you for thoughts on what Copeland did tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, the fans were enthusiastic to see him, so that was good, and they played well in the theater. He was okay. I think they're just laying the foundation until Christian is ready to do his big promo about how he feels about people turning on him. It's about what you expect. I didn't think he overacted, which sometimes he will get into that lane a little bit, but it was a fine promo. And then him and Stokely squaring off. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good segment.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. There's just something with Copeland where it's just I think the term unself-aware is overused, but there's a sort of an unself-awareness when his attempts to be clever often fall really flat.
It happens.
Or he delivers like the Oompa Loompa line, like you're gonna just keel over laughing, and it's like, it's okay. I know the crowd reacted to that. That was not a weak point in it, but yeah, there's still something about him where they're not quite. I don't know. He's okay. But yeah, there's there's cringy moments in his promos, and this was on the better side of it. I did like, people said, did I come out here to save Christian Cage? No. The answer is no. He's an asshole. He just laughed as he said it. He says Christian tried to make his life miserable. He recapped what happened. And I came back to get my hands on FTR. He talked about how they knocked him out for 4 months, and at his age, he doesn't have a lot of time to be. He can't be missing 4 months. That's a big percentage of the time he has left. But yeah, he didn't overstay his welcome in that segment. And then he had Stokely come out. I thought Stokely was solid. I liked him talking about how Copeland ran back and forth on the stage, which felt like drawing attention to something he's been criticized for. Because it's like, if you're to help your friend who's in a really bad spot, do you really want to play to both sides of the crowd and make sure you get cheered? And then Stokely said, yeah, you made sure we got our money's worth from a year's salary of pyro for someone. So I thought the Stokely thing worked. One technicality I didn't like, and it's super small, but I'll bring it up, is Copeland said FTR that if FTR if Copeland attacks FTR, then he'll be fired. But I'm trying to read the quote here from my report. Yeah, he said Stokely said he'll get fired if he attacks FTR, but then he said, but you didn't say anything if I get near you. Well, it was just, I think it was more interfere in FTR's matches, not just attack them. Like I said, that's almost not worth it. It's splitting hairs. But then the corny part of this segment was the security people who seemed independent and objective. They weren't really on Stokely's side. Like, oh, you want us to get in the ring? Okay. I mean, you did hire us. We'll do it. But then, like, when one went after Copeland and then another one went after him, so they could take the 4 horseman bumps for Dusty's bionic elbow spot, where they're just one at a time. And I just thought, that was kind of corny. And then the other two sprinted to the back, and that felt like comedy for a segment that I don't think should have been going as much towards comedy. I think Oompa Loompa, fine, leave it there, but don't have like slapstick security just darting to the back because they're so scared that Copeland's going to hit them. What's he going to do? Chase after them at ringside? They're going to stand at ringside and be dignified. I didn't need that. I just thought that was a little tone deaf in terms of what that segment needed as a conclusion.
Yeah, he should have been a little more serious since FTR was the one who put him out. So that is an excellent point. Although the explanation from his interview explains why he did do his full entrance before saving Christian, because Christian, as he said, was an asshole. So that maybe that's why he took his time getting him there.
So in a sense, Stokely should have said, yeah, you took your time getting your hands on FTR, playing to both sides of the crowd if you claim you were there for FTR. And then Copeland can go, oh, I could have run to the ring and I would have for anyone. But I kind of wanted FTR to beat up Christian for a little longer. Whatever. I wanted Christian to take a beating for a little longer before I ran out there. You're right. It is, in fairness to Copeland, if it wasn't something wrestlers did annoyingly, otherwise, it's part of a pattern. Right. We can actually probably give him a bit more of a pass than other instances. Sure. I wouldn't enter that into evidence as the most egregious example of it. Zach Barber with the super chat. Thank you, Zach. Super chat's always welcome. I have to give Shayna Wayne credit. Her promo tonight was good. That's quite the glow up from awful babyface to head of a heel faction. Is Kip Sabian and Nick with Mother Wayne enough?
Yeah,
can it stay as a faction? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Nick Wayne's been underutilized for a long time. So now this is his chance to step up to the forefront. And Kip Sabian is good, so he can hold his own as well. And if Mother Wayne continues to contribute, maybe even talk a little bit more, I think that she's a good part of the act as well. So, and then I see the comment here.
Chris Johnson said Nick Wayne is still a horrible promo.
Give him some time.
I don't think it's crazy to say that, but this was so much improved.
Yeah,
and I thought it just stuck in a narrow lane that he could accomplish without ruining it with over the top facial expressions. Fan Bless says Nick was terrible. Sorry, but Darrell says Nick Wayne gave the best promo I've seen and heard from him ever, and it was the best promo tonight.
Well.
He says Nick Wayne was one of the top things I saw tonight. So, some different opinions there, and I think I can understand different points of view on that. If somebody said it was terrible, I'd be like, I get that, but I would push back and go, terrible's overstating it. But I wouldn't say it was a highlight of the show either. When Hangman cut his promo, Toni cut his promo. Sorry, Darrell. All right, let's see. Back. Yeah. Oh, and Goodfella 1422 says Briscoe is my favorite promo tonight. What'd you think? Todd Martin pointed out well in the fix a few days ago, or I guess almost a week ago now, that Briscoe, or no, it was Sunday night. That's why I'm confused. We recorded part 1 of the fix on an odd night Sunday, and so we talked about. So it was a few days ago. He said that the Briscoe going all kind of zany and losing his train of thought and being wacky in his go home promo after the in-ring segment with MJF to build up their match at the pay-per-view that led to Renee laughing, undercut the tone when MJF is taking digs at your dead brother over and over, for his follow-up promo to be like that, just like that. It just felt like whose idea was that? And someone should have said no. And it seemed like, oh, the tension is out of the room, and it's like, no, you want the tension still in the room. And this almost felt like a bit of a redemption comeback promo in that way. This was Mark being serious. He's still Mark. He wasn't trying to be somebody he wasn't, but I think that worked. Yeah,
I'm glad they reined that back in. He's so consistently good that sometimes you forget that he has one of the best promos of the night, and even his not only his promos but his in-ring. I mean, he's very consistent, his in-ring performances, and he's just a very underrated guy. And that goes back to our discussion earlier. I think he would be somebody, if he were to focus like on a title change storyline, I think people would get right behind that. So that's one that they can keep in their pocket to when they need something, a good storyline like that.
Yep. Kyle Fassel says they need to have Briscoe be more serious, build a connection with the fans, and eventually win the big belt as an underdog. I think Briscoe's showing enough. I would tone down the folksy, zany, corny. I'm not happy with any of those adjectives, but whatever kind of have him not be the court jester, but have him be a more serious person.
Yes.
Yep. Goodfella 1422 says fans respect Briscoe already, in my opinion. As for Copeland, some comments on him. Derek Mitchell said Copeland is the guy at the office or at a party telling awful dad jokes. He says I'm not sure if Cope has any awareness for his bad retorts when he does his promos with heels. They all seem to not hit. Yeah, I mean, there's something there. He also says, why would Cope be fired from unanimous emails, but Mox wasn't fired for smothering Brian, for breaking into Hangman's house, Page burning Swerve's childhood house, and pile driving Tony Khan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You want to have a overriding philosophy of the book of what qualifies for certain things and what doesn't. Okay. So timeline-wise, it's just to go back to JB's email that kind of started our conversation on this. I think he's right about Cope and Christian at FTR at All Out, and I think we'll get a long story arc getting there. And I think we need a journey to get Copeland and Christian back together, given what they went through, and I'm glad they flagged that that's probably what they're doing. All right. I wish we got to hear more from Tekla, says JB. I'm not sure how proficient her English is, but even if it had to be in closed captioning, I'd like to get a feel for her personally, her motivations and her quirks. I love her look, her in-ring fierceness, and the character in general. I just need that one next piece to get things going. What do you think about that, Darrin?
Yeah, I think she can speak English. I saw her on one of your favorite things, a virtual autograph signing, and she does speak English very well. Yeah, so that's not a problem. I think they just need to give her that airtime. She's an intriguing character, and I think that they could get a lot out of her. I wouldn't have necessarily put her in that faction with Julia and Sky Blue, because I think she might get lost in the background, and I think that on her own she has enough personality to I would be more intrigued to see what she can do on her own. But if it gets her more airtime to hang out with those two, so be it. But I think there's a lot there.
It's kind of odd how Athena is thrust into top women's programs in AEW, like against Mercedes and Toni Storm, but she's gotten very little AEW attention or build in the interim. She'd be a much better position to draw had they done so. Honestly, wasn't really aware that she was a heel. Yeah. We covered that a lot, but good point. So did the Casino Gauntlet winners get a contract that they can cash in at any time? I was a little unclear on that. I think so. I think that's essentially what it is.
That's my impression. Yeah.
I don't think they specified that it has to be at All Out.
Right.
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
Next from JB. Christian just kind of got one of those awkward face turns where he never stopped acting heelish, but he got turned on by his heel stable. I suppose when Copeland told Christian to find himself, that hopefully means we're going to be on a satisfying face journey with Christian. I agree. I think I'm fine with the idea that Copeland, I did that to get back at FTR, not to save Christian. There's a history with those two where he goes, find yourself. It's a way of going, we can be redeemed, but you got to make the next move. And I'm okay with that, especially with 2 months to go before they really need to have the match.
And that does show me that there's going to be some kind of growth and that they're going to try to build a storyline. He's not just going to be like, I love you fans all next week or whatever. So it's good.
Totally.
Yeah.
Swerve Okada is an interesting first feud for the unified title. I do like that the title was crowned from the winner of Okada Omega, and it's the first feud will be against Swerve. It makes it feel high profile and an adequate secondary title under the AEW World title. Yeah, I think it's a good pivot point for Swerve. And frankly, Swerve and Okada intrigues me with Callis as the heel manager, Okada with a new entrance, a more serious demeanor, still doing the bitch thing. I mean, it's over, but so was Scissors Me Daddy, but I think it killed 2 careers because they just leaned in too much on it.
Yeah.
Became a crutch. And so, and it gets him cheered too. I would like to see, as delicious as it is for Okada to say it and get the pop, and he seems to really enjoy it. It's kind of like Seth's entrance song. Yeah, it's fun, but is it really the best thing for the type of heat you want where the money is made, which is when the bell rings and you're in a match? And so for me, I'd like to see Callis get Okada to steer in a different direction, be more intense. And frankly, tonight would have been a good start. And unfortunately, we got bitch.
Yeah, he can't seem to let that go. And I think it does more harm than good. And I get that people do enjoy that, but either do it sparingly or even for this feud, if you were to just phase it out. And if you did it once, it would be much more effective. But they came right. Yeah, the forward meter has been destroyed also. So
yeah, Zach Barber says the bitchy meter was destroyed tonight. Indeed. I mean, Okada was the one I would most edit out. But my point is that they do lose. If you say it because you're trying to be edgy, and when everyone is saying it all the time, sometimes for comedy, maybe it's time to find, work a little harder to find a different word or phrase to use. Yeah. All right. Finally, I hope that Darby is the final nail in the coffin, pun intended, for the Death Riders. This is actually how I had hoped the story would play out. Darby would be an integral part of getting the title off of Mox, but he wouldn't be the guy to win it. Unfortunately for most, I do see a blood and guts in this storyline's future. As always, love the show, and everyone go VIP. So Darby's been away a while. What do you feel about him? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that's what they're, where they're headed with Mox, and I think that works.
And probably a blood and guts match because, and maybe the faction that loses will have to break up, and that's fine because it's time for Moxley to move on. I mean, he's still one of their big stars, and he still has a lot to offer, but I think there might be too much baggage with the Death Riders at this point. So do the blow off and then have everybody go their separate ways. Because there's still a lot you can get from Yuta and Claudio, but maybe not necessarily as a unit.
Edward Sladex says in the chat, seemed Darby did not get a reaction. It seemed like the audience didn't realize he was there. I agree with that. I think a lot of the fans just didn't have an angle to see he was there. They don't have the big screens. And so I think that took a little away from it.
Yeah, it looked visually impressive from TV, but maybe from the vantage point of being in the audience, they couldn't see him, but I thought that it looked impressive, the visual of it.
Yeah. Darren, I've led the discussion, the chat room, and the emails have. Is there anything else on the show that you want to get in before we sign off?
I'm looking at my notes, and I think we hit everything. Even the $100,000 match.
What about that?
Ridiculous to say that they're going to get 100,000, but okay, fine. I think there's still a lot with the Willow and Chris Statlander storyline. We haven't seen the end of that, and I'm intrigued about where that's going as well, because she did the thing with Moxley, and I hope they do continue that, and that wasn't just something that they were doing on the build. So I want to see where that's going.
Earlier, I mentioned the flagship yesterday with Jason Paul from ProWrestling.net. Kyle Fassel said the flagship with Jason Paul was a solid listen. I tend to agree with a lot of Jason's takes. Give it a listen. So if you if you're finding us on YouTube, especially if you haven't gone to the podcast side of things, the flagship is podcast only. And so you need to search Wade Keller in your podcast app. And you'll see the blue logo and red logo pop up. The red logo are these post shows. So if you want to get the podcast version of these shows and also other content on the red feed, including flashback shows that is not part of our YouTube channel, that's what you want to do. And the blue logo show will pop up when you search Wade Keller. That includes a flagship, our pay-per-view previews, our interview classics, sometimes fresh interviews, and other flashbacks from 5, 10, and 15 years ago. All on that feed. But the weekly flagship, certainly the main reason to go there. That's reliably there almost every Tuesday or on occasion on a Thursday. And so, I appreciate the kind words about that. Kyle. Going back to the, I was going to comment on something else that you mentioned, Darren. I don't know if it was 100,000 thing, but yeah, the 100,000 thing can be a little corny. When that. Oh, I know what it was. I know what I want to bring up. To close things up, TNA. Some people in the chat commented on it. Goodfella 1422. TNA is cooking right now. Kyle Fassel been really enjoying TNA recently. A very focused roster. You covered every week. What do you think about the state of TNA and the relationship with WWE, the overlapping mostly with NXT, and the booking change and the booking philosophy?
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I did not know what to expect when they were doing this crossover at WWE, because usually that does not turn out for the best. But I think they made the most of the little crossover with NXT because they really could have used some help with the Knockouts division, and that has helped freshen that up, having the crossover. And I think with some of the people that WWE recently cut loose, I think that's going to help well. Also, Indy Hartwell has been an intriguing character. She's not the greatest in the ring, but she's a good character, and she's playing off of Tessa Blanchard. Some of the Tessa stuff has died down. But the big thing is the Trick Williams involvement in having an NXT person win the TNA title.
Yeah.
That's worked really well. And then to see the ascent of Mike Santana, who's a guy who was a tag wrestler. We weren't sure what direction that was going to go, and just to see him. And I think he's going to take the belt at Slammiversary. I would not be surprised whatsoever. Just to see him, a guy like that, you see that journey of a guy who was kind of a lower card guy now moving up. That's always exciting to see. And so it's a fun time for TNA, and the tag team division is really good. The Hardys are still getting the big pops, and fans are happy to see them as well.
It is sometimes tough when you're a tag wrestler to get people to buy you as a single star. It can be, sometimes it's just validating that's why you were a tag wrestler. Other times it's like, well, if you had been a tag wrestler, you could have been a single star, but we're not buying it. Adam Copeland, an example, someone who had a nice singles run, but was never the top guy, and maybe that's why he ended up in a tag team at first too. Christian, I think he's had a better second half of his career as a singles guy, both as a babyface and a heel than Copeland, although Copeland has had a really respectable and good return. Well, I mean, some people wish back, and we've given Copeland a hard time, but honestly, I mean, he's still, I don't know. I don't want to dissect that too much again, but overall, Christian always felt like he was in Copeland's shadow, and I think Christian has caught up. I think a lot of people who feel like they've watched wrestling a long time would go they're equal stars, or close to it. And if you go back more than 15 years, most people wouldn't say that. The Christian run as NWA World Champion in TNA was part of changing people's perception of that. But then when it got back to WWE, they kind of treated him a little bit lower end, but he still was really entertaining and effective. But his heel run in AEW, I think, has really been better than what Copeland has done in AEW. So that's good. But on the TNA side of things, do you think there's any compromise to their independent spirit working with WWE? Do you feel like they sort of at the mercy of WWE approving things? And are they too much? Are NXT wrestlers beating the TNA regulars too much? Did the Joe Henry thing define him down too much? Even though they're celebrating that he got to get clowned by Orton at WrestleMania, and they act like, oh, but I was on WrestleMania, so that's exciting. Right. Not when you're TNA champ. So I don't know. Any downsides stand out?
Yeah, definitely. I'm very cautious of that. I'm going to reserve my judgment until this weekend to see if JC Jane wins the TNA title, and you might have your answer right there. Because I think Masha should win that one just based on credibility, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. If JC takes that NXT title, that's a red flag right there. But yeah, I mean, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that WWE won't eventually just kind of crush them or do whatever they want to do. And they're kind of doing that now to some degree, but it could be worse.
Well, TNA's talking about trying to get a real cable deal with real revenue, and I don't know how WWE will feel about that, or if that'll be the end of the relationship, or what. Just something to keep an eye on. Jason Paul talked about that on the flagship yesterday. All right, Darrin, thank you so much. Great having you on. Fun to talk wrestling again with you.
It was great. Had a great time. Thanks.
Yep. So everybody, again, just pwtorch.com/ go VIP for full details on VIP membership. We need your support to do what we do. And so if you appreciate our brand of wrestling coverage and you want to get a commercial-free version of this, a customizable RSS feed, and a ton of archives and exclusive VIP shows. You don't have to listen to all of them, but there's the 18 years ago VIP Vault, or a wrestling education. We're right now marching through the first 3 weeks after the Benoit family tragedy. We're just, for a few years now, we've been marching through some of the earliest surviving Insider Pro Wrestling podcasts you'll find anywhere in that VIP Vault. You can subscribe to that Vault and catch up, or go to the Vault page on our VIP site and hear stuff from the mid 2000s, 2004, 2005, 2006, and learn a lot about wrestling history during that time. Also, when you sign up for VIP, there's a sidebar on the VIP website with over 100 interviews I've done with ex-WWE creative team members, and we also have collections of our WrestleMania roundtables and SummerSlam roundtables. So a lot of just cool collections of stuff where you can just go down a rabbit hole and experience our coverage of previous eras. So check it all out, and thank you, everybody. And until next time, Wade Keller signing off.